say let this applause go to the soldiers who were filming on a battlefield, thanks to who this film exists, thanks to who I am still alive, thanks to who my city, hometown, Kharkiv, and Ukraine is still a free country and a free city. And this film is for them. This film is my flag that I will carry for them and for their families of those who did not survive. Also, I would like to add, just to get it out of the way, that the cat is fine.
That would be your first question.
About that size. Speaking of the size, I would say the forest is slightly wider, like a little bit wider than this theater, but not too much. So that's the space we are operating in. And yeah, well, thanks for this. I am looking forward to talking to you all.
My name's Stephen Okazaki. I'm sitting in for Dan Krause, who couldn't make it. I assume most of you saw 20 Days in Mariupol, which came out in 2022 and won the Oscar at the beginning of 2023. If any of you haven't seen it, you can see it on YouTube for free. And it's an AP frontline film, and you can watch it.
PBS public television.
And it was, I assume, the Mariupol film. You were there, and you didn't know fully what you were getting into, and the war was just starting. And it was sort of, and it happened day by day. But with this film, which began filming the same year the film got the attention of the Oscars, you had a bit of time to think, about it. Should you do it? What it mean? In terms of your own safety, what it would mean in terms of your family. Can you talk about the decision to take this on?
Yeah, after Mariupol, for a while I remember conversations with producers, with my editors and in AP, and they were telling me, Mstyslav, you can leave, you have to do this anymore. You're pretty traumatized and you went through a lot, but that just didn't land right. We started editing Mariupol at the same time. I kept shooting because what we saw in Mariupol, and then later what some of it made into a film, some of it didn't, all that pushed me to want to do more. It never feels that you're doing enough, and that's a terrible feeling, and it just grows and grows as more of your friends, more of the people you meet lose their lives, and then you realize that you didn't film enough, you didn't ask them enough questions. But to that later, 20 Days was edited and it was screened in summer 2023. It was, oh, what a summer. We just started screening 20 Days. It was Oppenheimer, Barbie, 20 Days, and all the theaters. We went. That was such an interesting and deep experience. Audiences were coming. I was here in San Francisco, in LA, New York, and we kept showing it and kept talking to audiences. But at the same time, the Ukrainian frontline was on fire. There was so much attention and so much hope, and already back then it was clear that things are not going as they were planned. So I would finish screenings here and I would fly back to Ukraine. I would fly back to Poland and cross the border, get a train, get a car, and eventually, like 24 hours, get to the trench, get to these guys, Sophia and other platoons that we've been following. just the sheer experience of going from one world to another world, from this transition, and understanding how actually close those worlds are. When you see it on the screen, it feels so far, almost alien. But when you are traveling, and just these distances become very small. So this film is also about distances, about making these distances short between the audience that I want to bring into the shoes of the soldiers, between the Western society and men who are currently at the front line of Europe. All those distances I wanted to close, and I just wanted it to be less abstract, less political, especially now when everything is politics and geopolitics. I just want everyone to remember that this is what's actually how it looks like. It's not abstract conversations in rooms and handshakes that we keep seeing on the TV.
We see almost nothing of the conflict. We see, Americans see very little warfare in the coverage. We see, 7 seconds of Zelensky making essentially the same plea, and then we see Biden and now our erratic president making various statements, and then really nothing. Sometimes we see a map, and we see a little hope and a lot of desperation, and it's a sense of where is this going. So I think this reality is kind of shocking, but I guess do you feel, was it not really a decision process? You just something you had to just keep going? In terms of, I guess I'm wondering about, so it's not really a decision about, watching the first film, it just seems like, you're AP reporters, and I'm sure you've had difficult situations before, but it's like, what the hell am I doing here? I don't want to die, but here it just seems like you're just going, this is the way it is.
Well, 20 days.
You talk about your family and Mariupol and stuff, and now it's just like, this is what we have to do. Is that kind of?
20 Days was shot as news in the beginning, with news dispatches, then they turned into a film. Here, realizing the power of filmmaking, realizing that probably films have even more weight in history, facing all the avalanche of false narratives. Films are the way to reach the audience hearts. This film was already conceived as a film, although it does have its own journalistic value at the moment. At the time, publishing the picture of the flag was so crucial, it's so important. And Fedya and the team, everybody knew that if you get to liberate the village, if you get to raise the flag and no one sees it, then what's the point? And that's why Russians wouldn't want you to raise the flag. That's what, if they see the flag on the battlefield, you are the primary target. They will just throw everything at you. So, wanted to get that, and hearing from Fedya how they felt was important, and just realizing of how much tragedy is happening, how much tragedy that never makes it out to the world, and necessity to speak about that tragedy, that sacrifice that was happening in those trenches for meters, miles, and being able to ethically tell this story. Even this story could exist just from assembly of the body cam footage, and it would still be pretty good film. But how can you speak about someone's pain and someone's sacrifice, someone's fear and loss, if you not experiencing it with them? And how can I ask the audience to get into such a violent, scary place if I'm not holding, metaphorically holding the audience's hands, and we just walking there together. And that land is so personal. Like, those are the places of my childhood. Those are, my grandmother would tell me that my grandfather during the Second World War would fight in those places near Bakhmut when the German army was advancing. Then during my childhood years, you would travel to these places, not particular to Andriivka, but they're all similar in our region. You would travel to the village, and then you would stay with your grandmother, and then you would like run in those forests, play hide and seek with your buddies, or play war with your buddies, steal some corn in a field which now is a minefield, and just love to that land, being attached to it, drove me there, made me want to walk on it and feel how it was destroyed, and see how it was destroyed by this invasion, by these bombs. Yeah, and it's painful to see it that way, even if it's just a destroyed tree, a destroyed forest. Even that is painful. It's like a wound on your childhood memory.
And so the soldiers and you were going for that image and the power of it. I mean, to achieve that, but in the film, and I mean, you showed the sort of the reality of the emptiness of what you were actually doing, and then soon after, can you talk about you? And then you cut to the women and the morning, and then the landscape. Can you talk about just what you were doing there?
That's destruction, seeing that destruction, that the scene you're referring to, the scene that comes right after the funeral of Kabzar and Gagarin, is we called it, in the edits we called it Funeral of the Land. And it is as important as funerals of all those men. And that's exactly what I was talking about. That's how I felt. And we need to show the funeral of the land too. But for me, and especially for Fidya and his platoon, that is not demotivating. Seeing this land, seeing these cities that have been destroyed, seeing this nature being mutilated by war, only strengthens you, makes you want to protect it, because it's not for any of Ukrainian soldiers, not push for back and forward, push for some abstract land. For Ukrainians, it is just to survive. It's a home invasion. Someone broke into your home, someone shot your kids and your wife, burned half of it, and you're just trying to kick them out from there. So that's just a fight for survival. But hope that comes through that, even the most terrible moments, would sit there in the trenches feeling, would say, well, this is all will grow up, right? You saw that moment. But even, and that never made it into a film, when we jump out of the armored vehicle, and the beginning of the forest is green. And what happened is that the battle was going for such a long time, and as battle moves forward, the artillery destroys the nature, destroys the trees, and leaves nothing. But as the battle was getting closer and closer to the village over 3 months, the beginning of that forest started growing back already. So we jump out and we see trees already growing back. That made me so hopeful at that moment. I think Ukraine as a country will grow back too. That sometimes absurd optimism that Fidya has is contagious. This is contagious for me.
And what is the plan for the film right now? And is it going on PBS? Is that the main goal of these screens? And
The plan is to show it to as much audiences as we can, especially now as conversation goes about Ukraine almost every day, and it's so abstract. We are obviously facing a lot of difficulties with budgets, with being able to screen it because just we've lost the funding. The PBS lost the funding, and AP is under scrutiny too. With just like the entire independent journalism is now in crisis. So it has been very challenging to get to the audiences, and I realize that of course everyone is pretty tired of violence and of tragedies that are happening not only in Ukraine but everywhere.
So is there not a broadcast day for frontline?
There isn't yet one. I hope it's gonna make it. As 20 Days made it to YouTube, and it was now it's available for free, which is great for us. I hope this one eventually will follow the path. But it is going through the festival route. It's going through the theatrical release in different countries. But again, with the quite a lot of resistance from everything.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of uncertainty with the media here. And the film is showing in Europe and elsewhere.
It opened in UK in limited theaters. It will be opening in Europe too. More in the TV, more on the TV, more on the festivals. But some of the countries are screening it in theaters. Very few so far. But that also happened with 20 Days. Everyone would tell us what a great film, but we don't really want it. So only after it made it to shortlist or nomination, the TV channels started to come back to us and say, we always wanted it.
Right.
This is just the nature of it.
Yes. So, if we have time for a few questions from the audience. Back there.
I have the privilege of going to Ukraine twice, and I'm going back again this September.
Thank you for doing it.
I want to thank you. I believe in your people. I 100% believe in your people. I was never involved in politics, and really this is for the entire audience here. If you're feeling despair, you can do things. You can do something every day. You are so much more powerful than you realize. I've never been involved in politics. I went with 599 other people strong to DC, and we met with senators, we met with congressmen, and we moved the needle. I met a woman who was not Ukrainian, no Ukrainian ancestry. She founded an orphanage at the front. You can send money, you can call your congressman every week, you can move the needle. So thank you for moving the needle with your work.
Yeah, what we learned is small. Thank you. You can't do big things, but small things. Helping a single family, helping, just spreading the information, talking to people. I feel that one of the worst enemies of the modern society across the world is indifference. Indifference kills as much people as violence. And that is something we all can fight. This is something we all able to resist. Thank you for doing that.
It was my privilege.
Other questions?
Hi, I also went to DC, and I was actually in the Senate when aid was passed. I watch every day what is happening in Ukraine. I periodically make donations, and I noticed that the APCs, the armored personnel carriers, were, I believe those were M113s. those are 50-year-old vehicles.
Yeah. Part of the front had only those vehicles, yeah.
Yeah, we have sent, and this was under the last administration, we have sent hundreds of those. We have thousands of those, as well as Bradleys.
They went to this Zaporizhia region, and that during that counteroffensive, which was like the main direction of the counteroffensive. So those vehicles went there, yeah.
The point is that the United States can do more, regardless of who we are, where we come from, what background. Ukraine is preventing World War III from happening in Europe, following what we know is the path that happened under World War II. We cannot let Ukraine lose, or the same thing will happen. We've already learned this story. So thank you for what you're doing. My initial reaction was, is this a peace movie or a hope movie? Is this a movie that we need to make peace to end this, or we need to support the soldiers who are giving their lives for Ukraine's freedom? And I'm left with thinking the latter, but I wanted to find out what you think and what your message is to us about your movie.
My goal is to ask the question, and if you walk out to it with that question in mind and answering it, that's already a lot for me. I think if you would talk to these guys, talk to the soldiers, talk to the civilians who are now behind their backs and just being protected by them, I think they would tell you that every single one of them wants peace, and that's what I feel consistently was also communicated by, at least in the last 6 months, it was communicated by Ukrainian government in all the peace talks that Ukraine just wants peace. Everyone wants to wake up in a peaceful country and not being afraid that your neighbor, your family, your friend being killed by a missile. But sometimes, and Fidget knows that, and all of these guys know that it's just, you have to fight for that peace. If it is a home invasion and a violent, murderous neighbor is at your doorstep and shooting at you, then, and if you tell him, hey, let's just stop and talk, let's just please stop, and if they don't, then you reach for the gun and you try to protect yourself and your family. So yes, sometimes that peace has to be earned by fighting, by resisting, by protecting your family. That's what they do, and of course they need help with that. And they are grateful for everything that the US has done and Europe has done. I think that sense of gratitude is always there. Last time I spoke to Fidya when we screened this film in Ukraine, and then we went to the front line with him. He told me about how he reacted to February meeting of President Zelensky and President Trump in the White House. And they watched it on the TikTok. That's what reaches them. And then he said, well, first we knew we're screwed. Everything's gonna be bad, but at the same time, the entire country also, I think, lost the illusions and lost and understood that the only people who are really going to fight until the end for this freedom and for this survival are Ukrainians. And whatever happens around the world, this is up to Ukrainians how this ends and how they proceed to fight. Also, I want to give that agency to these men, to these guys who should decide what to do next.
I'm sorry, I only know 4 words of Ukrainian. Slava Ukraini.
Thank you.
I have a question. No, there's one. We have a mic, please.
Hi. Aside from the funeral scene, there are really just 2 kinds of pictures in here. It's close-up or it's drone. Talk a little bit about how you thought using those two things would work.
Great cinematic question. Thank you. Yes, that was challenging and so interesting. I have to give all the credit for that to Michelle Meister, our amazing editor and producer of this film. She worked on 20 days with me, and we learned a lot while working on 20 days. But by the time we came in and started filming, the brigade was already filming for several months. They filmed a lot of drone footage and a lot of battlefield footage for the battlefield analysis purposes for their own YouTube channel. So we have started by looking into what they already had. We started adding the cameras to our protagonists, to Fedya, to other members of the platoon. We started gathering carefully everything that was happening, and also shooting in headquarters, shooting with medics, and then ultimately walking with Fedya to ANDRIIVKA when it was liberated. So we ended up with having gathered body cam footage, regular body cams, then body cam footage from 360 cameras that we could reframe later, drones of several types, FPV drones, the kamikaze drones, phone footage, regular cameras. So all these mediums that were in our hands, and we needed to structure them and make it feel more comfortable. So what we did when we started building the film, we introduced only one medium at first, one single perspective, how it starts. And from that, we've been building and adding more and more and more different perspectives. So by 1,000 meters, we already learned that there are drones in the air that see the battlefield. And by the 600 meters battle, we have 2 cameras in headquarters, 2 cameras on the battlefield, 2 drones in the air, one camera with medics. So it is like you keep introducing the mediums to the audience to make it more comfortable as a story. And then separately, of course, we needed to solve the problem of the structure. How do we flash back? How do we tell the story of what happened before we came? And so we came up with this 2 parallel storylines idea when one storyline is Fedya walking through the forest with a flag, and meanwhile reaching each point, we flash back to what was happening before, and in the end it all meets in one single basement in one single moment. I don't know if that comes through, but the basement where we'll end up is the same basement where the injured Russian soldier, Russian officer was questioned. It's the same place, just a couple hours before we came in. So these 2 storylines merge by the end, by the time that we reach ANDRIIVKA.
So we have run out of time. But I thank you.
One more question?
One more question?
Sure.
One more question. Right here in front.
That could be.
I guess we're here. Let's get
Sure.
this
Yes. And I'll be here at the screening. So please don't mind.
Hi, thank you for your amazing film and your courage it took
Thank you.
to be there, taking all that footage. And my question is just kind of minute and technical, but something that's driving me crazy. The white crosses painted on the armored personnel carriers, the APCs, it appeared to be like an improvised painting. So was that like for spiritual protection, or was that for some kind of or operational significance?
That's the insignia that for each operation it's changing. Could be triangle, could be cross, could be square. So when the drone looks at the battlefield, it's easier for the drone to know. It's easier for the officers and headquarters to know who that. Yes, it's identification. You see all the Ukrainian soldiers have blue Scotch tape on them.
Yeah.
That identifies them. So from the drone, you see who's who.
I see.
Yeah. I'm as a journalist, do not know it, of course, because we're not soldiers, but that's also part of the identification. And then for different operation, they would use a different color. so the enemy wouldn't know how to pretend.
Is that a prearranged code?
Yes, it is prearranged code. Yes, yes. Before each operation, it's set, and only commanders and only soldiers of that platoon know about it.
Most excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
If I may say, I mean, when I was watching the film, my thought was, after Ukraine prevails, I think the film will stand as a really powerful anti-war film. I mean, you feel, I mean, it's such a strong statement against war, and it's just beautifully made. I congratulate you and
Thank
wish
you.
you the best.
The most important thing is that we also preserve the memory of those who have fallen for their families. Sheva's wife and other families came to the first screening in Ukraine, and it was the first time when she saw that he was talking about her in the trench, and it was the last moment of him filmed on camera. And then she heard people cry, she heard people gasp, and applaud for 10 minutes, standing ovation to all the families, for their loved ones. And if everything fails, at least that memory lives for them, the memory of their heroes, of these families. It's a tribute for them, yeah.